On the face of it, this is what the people of Baghdad have been waiting for. Decisive action by the US military against a team of bank robbers caught in the act. And onlookers roared their approval. Unfortunately, it had taken nearly half an hour for the soldiers to reach here, and 20 other robbers got away. This one was perhaps slowed by his artificial leg. And with the arrival of Iraqi police officers working with the Americans, the applause turned to jeers. One Iraqi officer was so incensed by the catcalls that he drew his gun and had to be restrained, forgetting for a moment that times have changed. At a nearby US military checkpoint, more confusion, as Marines helped two wounded men who'd staggered up to them bleeding from stab wounds and pleading for help. They claimed they'd been attacked by looters, but had they? Those are the looters, yelled another man who'd pursued them down the street. They're the bad guys. It was just one more measure of the continued confusion in this city. The Marines said they'd look into it. While down the road, another bank was burning.
Well, this one's the Bank of Mesopotamia. Eyewitnesses say this is the handiwork of 3 masked men who turned up early this morning, set the place alight, didn't even loot it.
Don't take anything. Don't take anything. Only burn this building.
Some people came dressed in black, with black masks and cans of benzene. They set fire to it.
The flames ate through the building, sending burning debris into the street. For this bus, one of the first back in service, the downtown route has become something of an obstacle course. Another group of people was getting frustrated as they tried to work out how to pull down the biggest statue of Saddam in the city. A chunk of neck has been taken out by a rocket-propelled grenade, but they'll need some heavy equipment to get the rest down. One man, a merchant, brought his son to be photographed in front of the statue.
So you want a picture of your son before it comes down?
Yes, and when he go bigger, to see the picture and remember.
What will you tell him when you show him that picture later?
I will tell him that man still our oil and still our feeling, good feeling.
He was an evil man.
Yes. I don't want anything. I want he to be happy in the future.
And do you think he will be now?
Yes. Inshallah.
A woman passed by with her latest looted acquisition, which will come in useful if the Americans get the water running. As for the real Saddam, new light today on America's April the 7th attempt to kill him in the suburb of Mansour.
So this is the result of the last American attempt to target Saddam Hussein. Now, initial reports said this was a restaurant. There is a restaurant, but it's over that way, relatively unscathed. Instead, the target appears to have been a cluster of 4 houses. Now, 3 of those houses have been reduced to rubble. A 4th is still partially standing over there. And that's the house that seems to have caused most suspicion.
Neighbors say 3 families died here. As for Saddam, the Americans said they were acting on intelligence that he was meeting top officials. Neighbors can't confirm that, but do have their own suspicions about that 4th house.
The owner is outside Iraq. Maybe they use it. Maybe, yes.
First, the furniture was unexpected. We thought that it was an empty house. After the bombardment, we saw very luxury furniture and unexpected. I didn't see, but some people even said that there was 5 phone lines. I'm not sure about that.
But 5 phone lines there were, though the furniture's now been looted. If this was a Saddam safe house, then the Americans missed it and obliterated the neighbors. A US military team examined the place 2 days ago and seemed to have come to the same conclusion. Around the corner from that crater, tentative signs of normality, some shops reopening. But as we drove back into the centre of town, more direct shopping. Another bout of looting, this time sugar, flour and rice from a government warehouse in the city's trade exhibition park. They took little notice of passing US military vehicles with loudspeakers announcing that essential services will soon be restored. Though the restored bus service provided a good way of getting the booty home. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Baghdad.
Weapons at the ready, faces hidden from the camera. Vigilantes head out on a patrol of Baghdad's most run-down neighborhood. Down streets scarred by decades of poverty, these Shia Muslim gunmen are bringing their brand of law and order to the suburb that was until last week known as Saddam City. A day ago, the sound of running gun battles and ambulance sirens echoed around these streets. Now it appears as if Baghdad's most volatile suburb is pulling back from the brink of chaos. At a nearby mosque, itself under heavy armed guard, the would-be policemen pile up goods liberated from looters. Inside, stolen medical supplies, also retrieved from looters, are dispensed to the needy. The move towards stability in this community of 1.5 million Shias, orchestrated by its religious leaders without the help of US troops.
These men are volunteers to restore security. They are armed not against the people, but the troublemakers backed by the old regime, to finish them off, to restore stability.
For years, those who lived within the confines of this ruinous, sprawling grid of fetid streets chafed against the regime they daren't fight. Their understanding of why they were downtrodden, simple.
Because we are Shia and we didn't want Saddam and his company. They killed the people and anything.
Today, a quick glance in the market tells all. Rotting fruit, the fare on offer for those accustomed to accepting second best. From those who cluster around our car whenever we stop, Saddam's ouster now setting aspirations to change that old order. We are happy with our leaders, he says. They are organizing the city. We don't want an American military governor. Not all agree with the new order, though. But unlike the days under Saddam, some brave enough to speak out.
There is no law. You can't walk safely. Those who holding machine guns, who can refuse them? And who can take these things from them?
Much in former Saddam City is far from settled, like the suburb's new name, Sadr City, named after a Shia leader. Like the looting, though, possession seems 9/10 of the law. Nick Robertson, CNN, Baghdad.
An American helicopter flies low over central Mosul. The Americans control the skies over this predominantly Sunni Arab city. The ground is a whole different matter. U.S. troops cling to an uneasy toehold in the governor's office in the center of the city, and that's it. Mosul, long a power base for Saddam's regime, is hardly celebrating what the coalition is calling its liberation. We don't want the Americans here, they tell us. Until Tuesday afternoon, Kurdish forces, allies of the Americans, patrolled city center. Their presence an irritant to the Arab population from the beginning. Now, Kurdish forces have pulled back to Kurdish parts of the city. With tensions rising, Kurdish officials are trying to build bridges with Arab tribal leaders to avoid a showdown. The talk seems friendly enough, but the outcome is as yet uncertain. Central Mosul is now a tense no man's land, a vacuum open for exploitation by elements still loyal to Saddam Hussein, local militias, and common criminals. On the outskirts of town, the Americans are trying to listen to local grievances. Arab villagers complain of marauding Kurdish gunmen. It's a complicated mix in which the Americans are just beginning to get their bearings.
Obviously, we're in a period of instability somewhat. Anytime you go from having a controlling regime to establishing a new government, you have a period of instability.
This city encompasses a dizzying array of ethnic, tribal, and sectarian differences. It's going to be a daunting task indeed to impose law and order, let alone introduce democracy. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Mosul, North.
Prevent any senior members of Saddam Hussein's government from escaping the city. Vehicular traffic through the city is also being strictly controlled.
As combat operations wind down, U.S. troops in Iraq are under growing pressure to focus on two uncompleted objectives: providing security for humanitarian relief and finding weapons of mass destruction, the primary justification for the war. The U.S. remains convinced the weapons are there, but well hidden.
I have every confidence we're going to find them. I mean, but I don't think it's unusual that we haven't found them yet. I think it's going to take people telling us where they are.
The U.S. military is beginning to transition into what it calls Phase 4 stabilization operations. Under the plan, U.S. Marines will move out of Baghdad and be responsible for an area including roughly 9 million Iraqis in the north. Two other zones will fall under the authority of the U.S. Army, one for the southern part of the country and one for 5 million people in and around Baghdad. U.S. Commander General Tommy Franks pumped his fist in the air as he arrived at Baghdad International Airport, but he kept his first ever visit to the city low-key, consulting with his field generals inside one of Saddam Hussein's presidential palaces, but not mixing with the Iraqi people. Sources say Franks will likely soon establish a headquarters in the Iraqi capital.
It also gives the person who's making the decisions what we call the feeling of the mud between his toes. There's no replacing walking on the ground, leading your people, getting a feel for the situation that you just can't get from any distance away.
The U.S. is just now beginning to total up the bill for the war, which so far exceeds $20 billion and is projected to grow by roughly $2 billion a month through the rest of the year. The Pentagon says that's in line with the low-end estimates of under $80 billion for a short war.
At first blush, from where we're looking, it seems that once again our estimates played out pretty well.
While General Franks didn't take a triumphal victory lap around Baghdad, he did savor the moment, glad-handing and backslapping with some of his troops. He smoked a cigar in one of Saddam Hussein's palaces, which is now serving as a U.S. military headquarters, and inspecting the premises, he wisecracked that the ornate surroundings appeared to be the result of, quote, the Oil for Palaces program. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, the Pentagon.
Acting on a tip from an Iraqi farmer, the troops moved in. His neighbors, the farmer had told them, disappeared 3 days ago, but left their bomb-making production line behind.
Got bags, which I haven't been able to look at inside of them yet, but those are laced up with Bastin caps already.
Right, I noticed
this is all terrorist
crime.
stuff. This is terrorist stuff going on, so.
What do we do with it? How do we transport it?
We can't, sir.
We can't blow it here. It's a residential area.
We're gonna have to do it here, sir.
The troops say they found enough to blow 3 city blocks.
Basically, you put up a 9-volt battery, and they will go.
The explosives individually packaged, possibly for use, the soldiers said, by suicide bombers.
This was where all the bags of explosives were here.
There was also plenty of shrapnel.
As you can see here, this is just bags and bags of shrapnel. This is a terrorist camp.
And detonators, from alarm clocks to phones. They even found a miniature model for practicing sneak attacks on highways.
It has your sensor. It senses the first vehicle. Once the line's broken for your sensor, it drops a device that creates a roadblock hazard, stopping your convoy, and then your whole convoy is susceptible to attack at that point.
Sophisticated tools for unconventional tactics.
This is made for covert operations, terrorist attacks, where it's unexpected, it's not aimed at just killing, soldier to soldier. It's made for everything that you can go at. Instill fear, terrorist actions, just like World Trade Center.
Still unclear who was building these bombs and who was the target. Ryan Chilcote, CNN, with the 101st Airborne Division in southern Baghdad.
U.S. forces searching a farm near Karbala found suspicious chemicals that turned out to be pesticide. They found a suspicious warhead at Kirkuk, marked in a way suggestive of a chemical weapon. Only it wasn't one. They found buried containers that were full of military equipment, but not the banned kind. Iraq's chief military scientist, General Amr Hammoudi al-Sadi, who surrendered to U.S. forces, said that's because the weapons of mass destruction that Washington wants just aren't there.
I was knowledgeable about those programs, the past programs, and I was telling the truth, always telling the truth, never told anything but the truth. And time will bear me out, you will see. There will be no difference after this war.
Ridding Iraq of its alleged weapons of mass destruction was a cornerstone of the Bush administration's case for attacking Iraq.
Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
And so, the obvious irony. The U.S. has won the war without yet finding the very thing it said the war was about.
If we don't find them, we got serious issues. We got issues with international law. We got issues here at home about why the President of the United States told Congress these weapons existed, getting Congress to therefore give him war powers actions.
The Bush administration says it's confident the weapons are there. But Chief of the U.S. Central Command, General Tommy Franks, says there may be 3,000 places to look, and it could take a year to get to them all. International weapons inspectors are asking to be let back into Iraq to continue their search, but the U.S. believes that Iraqi insiders are more important, people who might come forward more easily now that it's safe and could be lucrative.
People that have knowledge of the weapons of mass destruction program, for example, may be rewarded if they provide information about that program.
But looters may have been faster than U.S. soldiers or Iraqi experts. The scenes in major cities have reportedly been repeated at some suspect weapons sites, which have been robbed before they could be studied.
It's going to take the United States quite a long time to search Iraq for weapons of mass destruction and have a complete answer. I mean, they may get lucky tomorrow and stumble across a stock of chemical weapons, but they actually have to find everything, so they have assurance it's not going to be picked up accidentally by someone and kill them, or somehow be stolen and given to an enemy of the United States.
And according to one published account, bureaucratic infighting among U.S. authorities has only added to the muddle. A competition over how the search should be conducted and who should conduct it.
It may all come down to honesty. The United States and its allies have clearly won the war in Iraq, and they stand every chance of making it a better place because of that fact. Still, millions of people around the world are deeply suspicious about the U.S. and its motives. Real progress on the ground in Iraq, real progress on its weapons of mass destruction may be the only way to put those suspicions.
Takes a soldier's precautions as he prepares to enter the building. Safety off, taking his time, peering in before he enters the lion's den, because that is what this is.
Yeah, here's the big male. Yeah, all the cages are secure.
Welcome to Baghdad Zoo and some of its forlorn, listless residents. 6 lions here who had their last meal 2 days ago, courtesy of the U.S. Army. They will eat again later this day. This massive park in central Baghdad contains the city zoo. A few days ago, however, it was a battlefield inside the red zone. Iraqi soldiers had set up artillery, anti-aircraft guns. The animals deserted, ignored, no doubt terrified. When the army came through, the soldiers couldn't believe what they found.
I think it was somewhat surreal. I mean, you know, here we are, we're in the middle of a city and everybody's talked about urban combat for 2 or 3 months, and next thing you know, there's camels walking through our positions and monkeys in the tree, and at night you have a lion roaming free. It was very surreal, very strange.
Not just lions and camels, but 2 bears, listless and hungry, an ocelot, and more.
I just don't think it was something we could have turned our back on.
And so they did not turn their backs. Soldiers, fresh from fierce combat, have become zookeepers on a mission to keep the animals who remain here alive.
The lions were just coming up out of this moat, one in particular, one of the male lions, and he was standing right here and literally reaching through the cage.
One of the most bizarre incidents witnessed by soldiers happened here at the outside fence. A camel, electrical cord wrapped around its neck, and a group of Iraqis trying to drag it over the fence. The soldiers intervened, the camel got away. He's still out there somewhere. The plight of some of these animals is pitiful. Zoo workers long gone, who knows how long these creatures went without. Pigs were once here, but no more. They had to be sacrificed, the meat rationed to feed the carnivores something.
Here's the porcupines.
And near them, a wolf out of his cage, near death. Domestic dogs in their cages. One has died, the others emaciated. There's not even running water here. The soldiers and some locals cart it in by hand, in this case to a grateful bear, who curiously shares his cage with a dog. Back at the lion enclosure, we learn the wolf we saw earlier had died. He becomes meagre rations for the hungry beasts.
He's a beautiful animal. Absolutely gorgeous.